2018 has been a good year for metal music, but nowhere near as good as 2017 in my opinion, in which we saw many big names along with smaller but up-and-coming bands release some pretty strong material. 2018 has been more of a slow year in terms of releases, I would say, and it's definitely taken a dive in the quantity department. However, the positive side of having a year like this in music means that you have more time to scour through the hordes of newer, more underground releases instead of having to worry about scheduling your time around a plethora of bigger and more anticipated releases. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of new metal releases to check out. If it's new music you want, it's new music you'll get. Roll the intro. Think of this band as what Oubliette would probably sound like if they didn't have clean vocals, black metal vocals and influences, and violins. Replace all of that with a similar production and sound, the odd keyboard synth here and there, and more death metal inspired vocals and riffs. The album is a solid one that consists of 9 tracks and barely goes over the 40-minute mark. Unlike a lot of tech death bands who go for the extreme speed and the overuse of technical solos or finger tapping solos, this album prefers to build an atmosphere by having songs that move at a slow but steady pace, which allows the listener time to absorb all the little details and nuances this music has to offer. There's also a clear bit of Opeth influences to the songwriting as well, just minus the more folk and jazz elements to the sound. The vocalist has a decent voice that is good at creating a dark atmospheric element to the music. The songwriting is pretty tight, consistent, and they flow and transition nicely into one another. The drumming is great, I loved the guitar work, and the production is nice, clean and polished with just the right amount of griminess to still remind you that it is still a tech death album, and after all, it is definitely worth checking out. I would recommend this album to people who are fans of Opeth, Oubliette, and of course, Alkaloid. This EP is basically a split between Hollow Prophet, which is the side project of the Endure of Shadow of Intent, and SCUMFUCK, which is the side project of Dickie Allen of Infant Annihilator. Some of the songs are performed by Hollow Prophet, while the other half are performed by SCUMFUCK, and there is one collaboration track between the two bands. It consists of 5 tracks and a total running time of just over 18 minutes, so it won't take up much of your time if this particular genre is not to your liking. Hollow Prophet songs are very straight up deathcore with some slam influences, hence slamming deathcore in the genre title, and their production is a lot more polished. SCUMFUCK on the other hand have a more lo-fi, almost raw sound with the epic and haunting keyboard synths that give the music a somewhat black metal aesthetic inspired by bands like Emperor or Dimmu Borgir. Both bands sound great and bring their own unique songwriting styles to the table. Hollow Prophet being more of a technical and brutal style, while SCUMFUCK brings more atmospheric and sinister elements to their package. Dickie and Ben are extremely talented vocalists, and they both bring varying layers of sheer raw brutality to each of the tracks. This is most prevalent on the track Scum Prophet, in which the two bands combine forces to deliver a behemoth of a song. I highly recommend listening to this if you're a deathcore fan and a slam metal fan. It's short, sweet, and to the point, and definitely worth your time. I would recommend this EP to people who are fans of Vulvodynia, Shadow of Intent, Infant Annihilator, and Dimmu Borgir. Passage is the second album from US-based melodic black metal band Oubliette. This album consists of 8 tracks and runs for a total of just under 40 minutes. Their sound, unlike a lot of black metal, is rather polished. However, it does still retain a lot of the raw elements that allow the music to keep that black metal sound. What I really liked about this album is the fact that it incorporated bass guitar, which most black metal bands don't do that often, and had some clean vocals here and there that blended with some amazing background synth work. The way I would describe this band's sound is a mix between that of Dark Fortress and the Great Old Ones. This is because the overall songwriting is as experimental and melodic as that of Dark Fortress, while the overall atmospheric elements remind me a lot of the stuff you'll find in the discography of the Great Old Ones. There were plenty of things I liked about this record. The vocals, for one, are completely different to your usual black metal vocals and manage to tread a fine line between that of melodic death metal sounding growls and black metal screams. This is probably because the band take a lot of influence from In Flames, which also explains why the acoustic parts sound like something Jesper Stromblad would have come up with on the Lunar Strain album. The music manages to keep a consistent flow of melody while changing it up from time to time with other tempos, experimentation, and the incorporation of more folk elements, haunting synths, and amazing clean vocals. I also loved how this record was mixed, and I feel that this particular album is actually a great way to introduce non-black metal fans to the genre. So give this album a good listen. I guarantee it's worth your time. I would recommend this album to people who are fans of Dark Fortress, the Great Old Ones, and early In Flames.
Forward in vain to crush the uninformed, see that need to feed the logic that I bleed. Last up my one last breath, subsequent to the fountain thereafter.
This is the debut EP of the up-and-coming technical symphonic death metal band Mordant Rapture. Out of all my picks of the week, this one is my personal favorite. Their sound is the perfect marriage between the grand, epic, and bombastic sound of Flesh God Apocalypse and the more eerie, apocalyptic, and horror-influenced sound of Karak Angren. The EP has a total running time of 22 minutes, which sucks, but the music is so damn good that I could have listened to their stuff for a full-blown hour. While the metal instrumentals and compositions are standard tech death, the synth work on this EP is nothing short of incredible. I mean, there were times where I often thought I was listening to a real choir and a real orchestra. I hope this band makes it big enough to afford such collaborations, but only time will tell. The vocals are heavily influenced by both death and black metal and complements the ebb and flow between the different tonal and atmospheric parts of each song. The drumming is exceptionally well done, and there are plenty of tasty riffs and solos to ensure an immersive listening experience. Listen to this album now. I would recommend this album to people who are fans of Flesh God Apocalypse, Karak Angren, and Inferni. And finally, we come to the last release I have to suggest to you guys. This is the latest album from progressive metalcore band Erra. What surprised me about this album is how it sounds like a mix between Wage War, Architects, and Periphery from both an instrumental and vocal perspective. Granted, the overall production, mixing, and vocal styles were somewhat generic, but for this style of music it fits, and I'd much rather something that fits than something that seems out of place and odd. The album is the band's fourth, and it runs somewhere between the 40 to 45 minute mark. Like most modern metal releases, it's a fun, energetic listening experience and is a lot more accessible than the other albums that I have recommended on this list. The songwriting has a lot of the tropes of the metalcore genre, but adds a lot more progressive metal elements into it, thus keeping the music interesting and engaging as opposed to something made of constant repetition and shit ton of breakdowns. There's not much else I can say about this album other than I think it's a great listen. And if you've never heard of this band before, I highly recommend checking them out. For this album, I would recommend it to fans of Architects, Wage War, and Periphery. And that concludes the very first episode of this new show. I do hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I have introduced you guys to some awesome new music. Let me know what you thought of these albums and EPs down in the comments below, and I shall see you again in the next episode. Be sure to check out all the links in the description for my Patreon, social media, and other areas where you can find me online. Thank you so much again for watching, and until the next episode, take care of yourselves, and as always, have a kick-ass day. Cheers.